Hello everyone and welcome to my channel, and in today's video we are doing a top 10 list of the Warframes in Warframe. You all seem to enjoy the top 10 melee weapons in Warframe, so I thought why not do a Warframes one. Now before we get to the start of this video, remember this is in my opinion and I am ranking these based on how fun they are to use, and also everyone has different playstyles and these frames are best suited to how I play the game. Yeah, these frames are the old ones mainly because I've been playing the game since the beginning, like 2013, 2014. And I have a strong connection to the older frames. Doesn't mean that I haven't used and didn't like the new ones. They are great, and it's just that I do prefer the older ones. Maybe it's just a bit of nostalgia and whatever. But either way, enough of me rambling, and let's get into the list with number 10. And the number 10 spot, starting off strong with Hydra, and he is a pirate themed Warframe. He has amazing abilities and he is great when it comes to camping on any survival missions. And if you find any like rooms where it's just nothing, like normally it's a spawn room for the enemies and you have the enemies just coming at you front forward, and you can just camp there for as long as you want, and it is amazing. And the mods I have equipped to this one is just to give him more energy and duration and health, and you know, you see it on screen, and it just makes him a lot more easy to use, and it is brilliant. His first ability, he shoot a water ball at the enemy which deals impact damage. It's very simple but powerful, and I find one of that. And his second ability is a tidal surge, which he turns into a tidal wave and takes at anything in its path and launching enemies miles away like mad ragdoll physics, and it's brilliant. And his third ability, and you get to be a big puddle on the floor. I say puddle, it's more like a lake, and everybody brave enough to walk over it will fall down and drown. And you can even pull people under if you press the trigger while you're still in the puddle like state. Also, you could use your other abilities while you're still in that state, and I say that is really cool. And his ultimate ability is Tentacle Storm, and it is pretty much a hentai wannabe thing. You summon a Kraken from on the floor, and the Kraken picks up any enemy nearby and slams them to the floor repeatedly, and just picks up new enemies and destroys them, and it is insane and it is brilliant, and it's a lot of fun to use when you're in survival or any other mission or even defense. Put it on near the where you need to defend, and takes out anybody to protect it or whatever. Anyway, let's get on to the number 9 spot. And the number 9 spot goes to the one and only Excalibur, probably one of the best starting Warframes you can pick out of the 3 you get to choose from at the start of the game. And he has a full set of mad and insane abilities, and it gets you to really good to grips of how Warframe works when you start in the game, and Excalibur exceeds with your expectations, and he's fun, great, whatever. Now let's get into his abilities. His first one being slash dash, which you dash towards the nearest enemy with the Exalted Blade and just slice the poor guy in half. Nothing too special, but amazing, powerful, and it's great. And you start out pretty much at the starting rank. It is the first ability you unlock, and easy to use and really good. And his next ability, Radial Blind, which blinds the enemies nearby, which you can get off an amazing execution on them if you melee them from behind, which comes in handy when you have a Raven mod and you need to do like a certain amount of executions without being seen or something. I've had one of those and they're a pain, but this helps massively for those. And next ability, his third ability, Radial Javelin, which you use the Exalted Blade and slam it on the floor, and which throws javelins at the enemies and impaling to any objects nearby and impaling to the wall, and it's really fun and great. His final ability is the Exalted Blade, which pretty much is the reason everybody loves him and likes him and whatever. you pull out this blade, melee weapon blade, that deals heavy damage of slash, and when you melee you get to send a sword slash downrange and it cuts up anything within its way, and it does a lot of damage to melee bosses, big enemies, small enemies, you name it, it does a lot of damage, which is great because recently, like quite a while ago, that you can mod the Exalted Blade, and a long time you couldn't do that, which I find is really good. You get to do more damage than it already does a lot to begin with. Now let's get into the number 8 spot. And the number 8 spot goes to Valka. She is a female Warframe and she has one of the highest base stats for armor, with 600 on the normal and 700 with the prime version. And these mods that I have equipped to Valka, and yeah, you probably see a little bit of panel with my mods, but either way, she has a passive ability of 50% recovery time after being knocked down, which comes really handy when you want to get into the action much faster. Her first ability, Rip Line, which allows you to pull any foe towards you, and you can easily zipline where you want to pull yourself to any surface within range. Second ability, Warcry, which is pretty simple, which boosts nearby allies by increasing their armor and speed. Her third ability, Paralysis, which you get to get rid of all of your shield, but stunning and damaging nearby enemies. And her fourth ability, Hysteria, which can also be called the Wolverine mode. You get these really long nails, and it's similar to Excalibur's Exalted Blade, and that it drains energy as you are using the ability, which makes this a really fun frame to use and incredibly overpowered and really nice and good to use when it comes to like survival or any what you have to do with a lot of enemies really fast and take out as many as you can, and it's good for that. And with the high armor, it just makes it even better for Valka. And anyway, let's get into the number 7 spot. And the number 7 spot goes to Atlas, which is a Warframe I don't really see being used that much anymore. But either way, he is a really nice and really good Warframe and really easy to use as well. He has a passive ability being that he cannot be knocked down while he's standing on the ground, which is great if you're like a melee focused player or you want to level up a melee weapon like really fast or whatever. This ability is quite useful when it comes to that. And his first ability, Landslide, which is pretty simple really. You just slide towards the enemy and just give him a big right hook, which is, is always fun to do. And his second ability, Tectonics, which you get to pull up a stone wall in front of you, and if you press the action button again when facing the wall, the stone wall will turn into a big bowling ball and it just flies towards the enemy, and get a strike if you can. And his third ability, Petrify, which you get to turn the enemy into stone, and they stay still for a certain amount of seconds, and you can even combo this with his first ability, Landslide, if you stone the enemy with Petrify and then use the combo of first ability Landslide and you'll smash them, which it uses quite a lot of energy, but it's always fun to use the combo them, and it's great for new players I suppose, when with the other Warframes where you combo the abilities together. And his final ability, Rumblers, which you get to summon some stone brawlers which attack the enemies around you, which is always fun to use. And these are the mods I have equipped to Atlas. This is probably the last time I show you the mods, because you'll probably see a pattern here when it comes to my mods. So let's get on to the next spot on the list. And the number 6 spot goes to Mesa, which is a female Western themed Warframe. She's a lot of fun to use, and when I crafted it I fell in love with this Warframe instantly, which she does have a great passive of being 15% faster and reload single-handed sidearms, and sidearms are 25% more rapid and gain 50% health when you're not using melee weapons, which is great. Her first ability is Ballistic Battery, which when activated restores damage done by guns, and when triggered again the damage is added to the next gunshot. The second ability, Shooting Gallery, which when triggered it jams nearby enemies' guns, which gives you an opening to take them all out at once. Her third ability, Shatter Shield, which gives you a temporary armor around Mesa, which stops any incoming bullets, and it's really good and it's useful. The last ability of Mesa is called Peacemaker, which Mesa enters a quick draw stance. You can't move or nothing, but you get to gun down all the enemies what is visible to you, killing them in rapid succession, which is great and fun, and she's always been fun to use, and this is one of my favourite. Like, obviously the ultimate is the best one, but either way, let's get on to the number 5. Alright, so now we're halfway there, which this spot goes to Wukong, and this Warframe I've probably mastered quite a few times. I think it's like 4, 5, 6 times now, because he's that fun to use and easy to level up. His first power, which is Consensual Twin, which you get to summon a doppelganger of yourself, and he stays with you until he dies, and if he does you can just summon him again, basically a spectator but more powerful, and you can use him multiple times, and which it's like having another player with you at all times. And his second ability, Cloud Walker, which you get to dissipate into the clouds and fly around, and which is great for like capture missions really, which you get to fly around, fly towards the target and kill them, and then fly to the extraction point. And his third ability, Defy, which Wukong and his twin, if he's summoned, defy enemies' attack, and all damage is stored and dealt back to the enemy with Wukong's staff within one strike. Which leads us to his last ability, Primal Fury, which Wukong pulls out a staff. If you have your doppelganger with you, he pulls one out as well, and then now there's 2 of you running around with the staff killing so many people, and if you have the continuity mod and the flow mod equipped, it will make the Primal Fury power last a lot longer. And now let's get on to the next spot on our list. The number 4 spot goes to Nova. I didn't really use this Warframe that much when I got the base version of her, and I didn't really understand how she worked or anything, but I gave her a second chance once I've got the Prime version, and I fell in love with her powers, and it's really easy to use, well, easy-ish. But she has a passive power. When she is knocked down, she releases a 6-meter defensive burst, and it deals 250 damage to nearby enemies. And her first ability, Null Star, and it creates an antimatter particle that orbits around Nova, and each particle increases the damage reduction received, and it can stack up to 90%, and it increases 5% each time. Her second ability, Antimatter Drop, which you get to throw a particle antimatter upon impact with it, it will detonate. Her third ability, Wormhole, you get to place a portal unless you travel via 2 places at once, and you can go through them as many times, and it's really nice for like interception, and you can get to go for different objectives quite quickly and defend them as efficiently as possible. And her fourth ability, Manicular Prime, which with this power you get to prime nearby enemies, and killed they are detonated and just explode, and you can make a chain reaction to enemies that are not primed, or if they are primed, and it's incredibly overpowered, and it's really fun to use when you're in like survival missions or even defense or anything. You get to kill a lot of enemies with this fourth ability of hers, and it's great for like melee weapons level ups or whatever. And now let's get on to the top 3 spots. Here we are, we're in the top 3 spots, and the bronze medal goes to Rhino. He is one of the classic frames, and he is just a tank. He can take a lot of damage, and he can inflict it as well. And he has a passive ability which, when you land from a great height, you emit a shockwave dealing 100 damage. And his first ability is pretty simple, is Rhino Charge, and it's pretty self-explanatory. He charges into the nearest enemy, and it's always fun to use. And his second ability, Iron Skin, when triggered you have an Iron Skin which lets you take lots of damage, and it does not take away from your normal shield, allowing you to be the target of all the damage. Really useful facing the infested. Use Iron Skin and you won't get any toxin damage, like you won't get poisoned or anything. Any damage, it will stop it. And the third power, Roar, which allows the nearby players within the area have increased damage, which is pretty simple, pretty good, and it's always helpful to be helpful on the team. His final ability, Rhino Stomp, which you get to stomp the ground, tumbling enemies around him in stasis, and it's great because it stomps the floor and the enemies are just floating in the air for a few seconds, and it gives you a good opportunity to hit them with your melee weapon or gun them down. It's great against bosses sometimes when they're on the floor, or just to stun them for a quick second to get an opening on the weak spots. And anyway, let's get to the number 2 spot. The number 2 spot, the silver medal, goes to Frost.
You're as cold as ice!
One of my all-time favourites for the longest time, and he has a passive ability of when enemy strikes Frost, there is a 10% chance that they will freeze the enemy for 20 seconds. His first ability, Freeze, which explains itself of how it works. It freezes the target in its track. His second ability, Ice Wave, when triggered you get to send a razor sharp crystallized ice like wave towards the enemy, dealing heavy damage. His third ability, Snow Globe, which creates a protective sphere around any objective or anywhere, yourself or the defense or anything, and it stops any bullets coming through, and if enemies decide to come into the globe they are slowed down, and it's great and simple. And his last ability, his final one, his ultimate, is Avalanche, and it instantly freezes the enemies nearby and it shatters them and throws parts all over the place, crystallized, and it's always good. And it's one of my favourites. I've used it for the longest time and it's one of my favourite frames. And let's get to the honourable mention. And there is 2 Warframes on the honourable mentions, and the first one is Ember, and she is a fire based Warframe, and she's a lot of fun to use in that. But the main reason she didn't quite make it onto the list was last ability, her ultimate, was World of Fire a while ago, but they recently changed it to Inferno, which it was like kind of the main reason for me and a lot of players of using Ember. But with World of Fire it was a lot of fun. You get to burn enemies like in close proximity, and it was very overpowered. And I think the main reason they got rid of it is because it was kind of annoying when you're not using Ember for other players to getting kills for level ups and that, because everything was just burning around you. And thank God that the any of these maps are not have destructible environment, otherwise the whole map will be a pile of ashes on the floor. And the other honourable mention goes to Necros. He is a great frame to use, and he fits the player type of supporting the team in a way that you get to summon some minions and some other stuff, and he is quite useful. I enjoy him for the most part, but it's just like he didn't really click with me that much. He's just, yeah, I prefer Ember over these ones. Actually, I've got a bonus one for you guys. The other honourable mention, because I know some of you might say in the comments, is where's Octavia? Yeah, when it comes to Octavia, she is great. She's like the music based Warframe, like she uses the tempo of the music and stuff. She is a really good Warframe. It's kind of the same when it came to Necros. It just didn't fit my type of play style when it comes to Warframe. So she is fun, I liked her, but she didn't really make it to the list or the honourable mentions, but she is a really good Warframe. And now let's get to the number 1 spot. My number 1 spot, my favourite frame, the gold medal, goes to Saren. She is the toxic based Warframe, a toxic bitch if you will. Anyway, her first power, Spores, when triggered inflicts corrosive spores and it can spread to other nearby enemies. The longer the spore spreads, the more damage it'll do. Her next ability, Molt, she shreds her skin like a snake and leaves a decoy which draws the enemy's fire. Her third ability, Toxic Lash, which makes your melee weapon have a toxic buff and bursts enemy spores when you use the first ability, and it's quite easy for you to level up melee weapons when you use this Toxic Lash ability, which is what I always use. That's why she's one of my favourites. And her final and the ultimate ability, Miasma, she releases a poisonous miasma that deals viral damage to the image within the range and the foes affected with spores, and it'll be more susceptible to the mist. And that is the end of the top 10 list. Thank you so much for sticking around to the end. I hope you enjoyed this top 10 video. If you want to see more videos like this, leave a like, and if you have any video suggestions, let me know in the comments, and also leave a comment of your top 10 Warframes. And obviously this video is in my opinion. Subscribe if you are new to the channel and hit that notification bell so you don't miss an upload, and I hope to see you in the next video. Stay safe, people.